Rory is, again, one of the great examples of the Chilean industry making practical applications within blockchain for institutions, governments, and as well proliferating globally. So just again, Rory.
You have a clicker? Okay, cool. A lot of slides. Thanks for the invitation, Joey Mitchell, to participate in BGIN, to say hello to some old friends, also to meet some new friends along the way. Today, I'm here to talk about, the little business that we've built and how it's evolved over the years and what we're building next. And what we're hoping to achieve. And I'm also joined today here by our co-founder, Liv, as well as our marketing manager, Jay. It's interesting to hear Dr. Dimitrios talk about government level, society level adoption. And I think to make that into reality, we need the infrastructure for that to happen. And in our experience, that infrastructure isn't there today. And there are lots of different attempts to try to create a scalable, sustainable, predictable infrastructure. And that's largely, something that we're working on, but also the globe is working on. And without that infrastructure, you can't build scalable digital IDs or payment networks or, money and, different systems. So yeah, it's important to have that concept. Next, please. Thank you. So my name is Roy Hui. You can find me on Telegram, Twitter, X at Roy Hui. Next, please. I'm the CEO and founder of Pella Technology, and today we'll be talking about LightLink, which is a blockchain which we've created. We've been a builder in this space, and since 2017, we've been building a lot of different technologies over the years. Being in technology for 22 years and blockchain since 2017, that makes me a dinosaur in this industry. But I think it's good to have that level of experience when we're talking about larger scale applications. So next, please. Thank you. Over the years, we've been building a lot of different enterprise solutions in payments, in centralized exchanges, in asset tokenization systems, certification, supply chain, so on and so forth. And some of these applications for our clients are adopted predominantly around the world. I think up until a few years ago, we were 95% global. And especially through COVID, we acquired more and more projects in the African region as well. And some of these projects process over 10 million transactions every day. So next slide, please. Just the illustration of some of the transactions we process, hundreds of millions in transactions on a monthly basis. Next, please. Thank you. And underpinning this tech capability is our enterprise blockchain. So we've been building that since 2017. And I think these enterprise blockchains are really interesting technology because they can facilitate large-scale transactions. It's very predictable. There's a lot of certainty. But the issue with that is it's largely disconnected with the wider world. And it's fairly opaque as well. It's hard to participate and interrogate what's on the network and trust the network. Next, please. So we've been building a lot of solutions on public networks as well. Next, please. Thank you. And it's great that Michael spoke about the Australian Open project. It's something that we're really proud of, to work with Tennis Australia to create that level of innovation in the sporting industry. And we're trying to deploy this solution to golf. We did a similar project with the US Golf Association, and we're trying to look at various sports throughout Europe as well. So this is a really cool innovation in the industry, which I won't go too much into, but I just want to highlight one point. Next, please. Thank you. We only had 6,700 digital assets available to sell. And when you're looking at the real world, how many tennis fans are there in the real world? There are hundreds of millions of fans. And when we only had 6,000 assets, it does not connect and relate to the demand and interest of the real world. Next, please. Thank you. This is another project we worked with, one of our more successful projects. Again, it's an NFT collectible gaming. It talks about, the future of where we would in online Web3 interactions, metaverse type of project. Next, please. Thank you. And this project had a lot of interest, but only had 11,000 assets. And when you're talking about very successful Web3 projects, it's really early at the scale of thousands of users at the same time, which is very different to our enterprise projects where we're processing millions and millions of transactions every day. Next, please. Thank you. And we typically look at Polygon as a chain to use in a public chain environment because Ethereum is very expensive and Binance, it's a little bit difficult to access, and there's a whole different political thing attached to it now. But Polygon is a chain that we deployed some of our projects to, right? And when you look at Polygon as a chain, it's actually fairly easier to calculate how many people can participate at the same time. We just look at these spikes. So every time there is a spike, basically it says the chain cannot process any more transactions, and the transaction fees become super cost prohibitive to participate, and essentially kicks the network, people out of the network from participation. So if we look at the spikes and we correlate to the amount of transactions submitted and we divide the two, we can actually work out how many people are on the network at the same time. And using that math, you can derive the amount of transactions per second you can process, which is the amount of people you can service at the same time, is about 40. And theoretically, the technology can process 70,000, but in reality, in production use, these larger public blockchains can process maybe hundreds of users at the same time. And that's definitely not sufficient for real world applications. Next, please. Thank you. So public chains are cool. They have a lot of innovation. There's fantastic, economy and collaboration all happening on the layer 1 level. But at the same time, it's very difficult to predict and it doesn't support a lot of users. Next, thank you. So along this journey, about a year or so ago, we were partly acquired by one of the largest conglomerates in Asia called the CP Group. And in this journey across the different group, we're looking at how we can add value to the conglomerate, because there are telcos, there are real estate companies, there are retailers, convenience stores, lots of different things within the organization. We currently have 5 different projects within the group, but you're really looking at larger enterprise rollouts, right? When you look at True Mobile, the True Wallet as an application, there are 40 million users as the in-store. So when we look at, if you walk into a convenience store and you're issued with a digital collectible, how do you do something like that? And it's very difficult to use a closed off enterprise blockchain, and it's very difficult to use a layer 1 blockchain. Next, please. So we really need to look at how we can, scale, provide a capability for millions of users to participate at the same time. So Translucid is a metaverse project we had the opportunity to work on. It's being fairly well celebrated with Austrade. I think Simon, hi. While Simon was at Austrade, they provide a lot of support with us working with the larger tech conglomerate, especially celebrating this project. But we literally have to work on how do we scale solutions to millions of users. Next, please. Thank you. Sorry, there's a lot of slides. So this is where layer 2 is coming, and it's not an idea we came up with. There are a lot of really awesome people in this industry who consider layer 2 as a scaling solution. And we're seeing from an observation perspective, more and more projects moving from private blockchains, layer 1s, into layer 2 projects, as well as existing layer 1 projects becoming layer 2 projects. And it's an industry trend that we're seeing in real time. So layer 2 as a technology borrows best capabilities from both sides, enterprise blockchain with that predictability and the larger economy on layer 1 blockchains. And this is particularly true in EVM, Ethereum-based ecosystems. Next, please. Thank you. So it's a merge of two. This is just a homage to the Cockroach Ethereum merge, but it's the same idea. Next, please. Thank you. And some of the best minds in the world, also think this is true. So Vitalik famously has a modular blockchain thesis in terms of how he views the world as Ethereum being the settlement layer, and there are many execution layers on top of layer one. And today we have a pretty cool audience that understand what I'm talking about. So I won't go. I try to keep it a little bit more, inside baseball. Next, please. Thank you. So layer twos, I believe, is the future, and I think there is a large movement, a momentum to utilize, to deploy solutions on layer two because of all the merits and problems that we saw earlier. Next, thank you. So one of the issues with layer twos today, when you look at darlings of the layer two world, Optimism, Arbitrum, and projects like that, it operates the same economic model as layer one. And that's an interesting observation because it's very closely tied with layer one capabilities. It's, it uses the same supply and demand economics, right? And when you operate a supply and demand economics, there is a lot of supply, not enough demand. There are attributes within that equation which are still largely variables, and that becomes a complexity for enterprise customers. Next, please. Thank you. So when we talk about a typical EVM gas transaction fee, which is, the cost of utilizing and participating in the network, it's a fairly well understood calculation to determine how much does it cost to send a USDT transaction, right? It's the cost of gas, that's the supply and demand equation in the ecosystem, as well as the price of the native token. So you actually have two variables in this equation. One is the gas price and one is the native token. So when somebody asks me, how much does it cost to mint 100 NFTs? It's actually a difficult question to answer. It depends. It depends what price Ether is, and it depends, how many people are using the blockchain at the same time. So we will always give some premise to say, assuming Ethereum is at $2,000 and gas is at 50 Gwei, it's going to cost you 2 Ether. So, and when I talk to a CTO at a bank or a government organization or supply chain company, they have no idea what I'm talking about, right? So, but then I try to say, hey, it might be $2, but it might be $5, which is very difficult for them to comprehend because in enterprise world, when you talk about a government application, right? When you talk to your chairman or your board, that variable is tremendous. And that's something we saw as a problem, but we also saw as an opportunity. Next, please. Thank you. So when you talk about larger scale applications, single transaction, $2, $5, sure. I'm happy to, take the wager and because it's very valuable. But when you scale that transaction to hundreds and thousands of users, and when you create millions and millions of NFTs, right, that problem becomes a lot more problematic. So when we look at whether can we issue tickets for the Australian Open in 2024 as an example, right? Because in the scale of thousands, it's actually very easy, but in the scale of millions, it's actually very difficult. How much is it going to cost us? It's a very difficult question to answer, and some of the chains can't answer that problem. Next, please. Thank you. That's why we built LightLink. Next, thank you. So LightLink is designed to scale. Is to design to scale in the millions of users, and there are a lot of attributes we try to incorporate based on the problems that we saw in the market, and one of them is UX. It's actually fairly difficult to use a blockchain. So connecting, like from a pure Web3 perspective, connecting MetaMask and doing all those things, and it's very difficult to introduce a ticketing, true on-chain ticketing capability to an event like Australian Open, because if you want to use an NFT as a ticket, you have to go buy Ether, you have to do KYC, AML on a centralized exchange and do that. And you are uncertain whether if your transaction will go through at the gate. So it's really difficult. So one thing that we introduced is for certain smart contracts, it becomes a gasless experience. So it's an EVM chain, but for some smart contracts, we can whitelist the smart contract and we interact with the smart contract. It's a gasless experience. So by that, we hope to introduce a better UX and in turn, we have better adoption. Next, thank you. And on the other side of that equation, we have a enterprise mode. And in the enterprise mode environment, enterprise customers will essentially pay for transactions on behalf of users. So it's gasless for the user. But from an enterprise customer perspective, they pay something that's a little bit more predictable, and that's fiat. Instead of Ether on demand. So we're trying to introduce two economic models. One is a public model, which is great. It's very widely understood, very low barrier to entry. And the other is a bulk buying economic model, the opposite to supply and demand. So trying to introduce two economic model in parallel on the same chain. Next, thank you. So yeah, that's why we built LightLink. It's very scalable, it's green, and it has this new economic model, hopefully to bring better usability and more scalability. Thank you. Next, please. So we're in mainnet. We've been in mainnet for a few months now. Next, please. Thank you. And here are some applications that's deployed on top of our network. So ticketing, these guys, we're a infrastructure. We are a network, right? So we support entrepreneurs and businesses trying to build on top of our network, and this is one of them. They try to introduce NFT ticketing and try to take on Luma and Eventbrite, which is pretty cool to do so. But they've issued substantial amounts of tickets on using our infrastructure. Next, please. Thank you. And the other is a pilot in terms of a public transportation project. And this is similar to what Michael was talking about earlier in commercial digital currency. So instead of a central bank digital currency, this is a South African rand application utilizing a public transportation company as a issuer. So it's kind of our stealth way, try to get into the participating in creating a CBDC or stablecoin equivalent. And so people who ride the bus has a digital app. They tap on the other NFC chip to pay for the bus ride. It's a very simple use case. It's essentially payment transfer, but it also solves a lot of problems because it makes everything more transparent, more reliable, and fund distribution almost happening real time with bus drivers and things like that. It's also something that we hope to realize in the Web3 world, because you essentially have one side with a very small number of participants. You have tens and thousands of users in the crypto space as crypto natives, and the addressable audience from DeFi projects are relatively small, right? But if we're able to bring millions of users from the enterprise side, and with these apps, we can potentially open up micro-lending, better saving capabilities within that app, and that can provide a lot more users of existing DeFi ecosystems, trying to converge the enterprise user side as well as innovation because they're on the same chain. Next, please. Thank you. Of course, we do some metaverse, digital assets thing too. Next, please. Thank you. So we're still fairly small. Our main bridge from a economy opening up perspective started in October, but we're seeing about 100,000 transactions every day, which to my surprise, we're now like the 11th largest blockchain in the world. Purely because the number aren't very big on public chains. So when you look at Ethereum, it processes 1 million transactions every day. And when you look at many other chains, they process very small number of transactions every day. So just because we're processing 100,000 transactions every day, we're the 11th largest blockchain in the world. And we're hoping to see substantial more numbers as we form more partnerships and offer more value across the world. Next, please. Thank you. Yeah, and that's it. LightLink, just a little bit of history on who we are, what we've done, and how we got to where we are and how we built a solution to address the problems that we're seeing in the market and try to build a infrastructure for millions of users. Next, please. And it's really cool to be here and love to explore collaborative opportunities, with everybody here and see whether there are things that we can do together. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Rory. That was amazing. It's always great to know about a 11th largest blockchain you never knew about. So thank you so much. And again, thank you to the team for coming out.